Every country on earth is in debt. Some owe millions, others owe trillions. But there is a question almost no one ever asks. If every nation is in debt, who are they paying? Because debt only exists when someone owns it. And if someone owns the debt of every nation on earth, then they don't just own money, they own power. To understand who that is, we have to go back, not decades, centuries, to a time when money was real and debt had consequences. 200 years ago, money was not digital, it was physical, gold, silver. If a government wanted to spend, it had to possess real wealth. If it borrowed too much, it failed. There were limits. Empires rose carefully and collapsed quickly. History was brutal but honest. Debt could not grow forever, and that was a problem, because power does not like limits. As wars became larger, as empires expanded, gold became an obstacle. You could not print it. You could not create it. So governments changed the rules. They introduced paper money. At first it was honest. Each note promised something real, a fixed amount of gold. People trusted it, not because it was paper, but because it could be exchanged for something real. But trust is fragile, and temptation is powerful. During wars, governments printed more paper than gold they possessed. They promised they would fix it later. They always do. For a while, it worked. Economies grew, empires expanded, debt increased, but slowly, still manageable, still visible. Then something changed. Debt stopped being an emergency tool. It became normal. Governments discovered something dangerous. They could borrow without immediate consequences. They could delay the pain, and once pain can be delayed, it can be ignored. This was the birth of permanent debt, a system where governments no longer aimed to pay off what they owed. They only aimed to roll it forward, year after year. Most people don't realize this. They assume debt is temporary, that someday someone will pay it back. But modern governments do not think that way. They never plan to eliminate debt. They plan to manage it, and managing debt is very different from ending it. This is where the illusion begins. People imagine that countries owe money to other countries. America owes China. Europe owes foreign investors. That is partially true, but it hides the real picture because the largest owner of government debt is not another nation. It is the financial system itself. And at the center of that system is something most people never truly understand: the central bank. Every modern nation has one. They operate quietly, they speak in technical language, they claim independence. But their power is immense. When governments spend more than they collect, they issue bonds, promises to repay with interest. Banks buy these bonds. Pension funds buy them. Insurance companies buy them. They are called safe assets. But what makes them safe is not reality. It is belief. When demand for debt slows, central banks intervene. They create money and use it to buy government bonds, not with savings, not with taxes, but with newly created currency. This is the moment most people never see, because it feels harmless. No explosion, no announcement, just numbers changing on screens. But the impact is real. When new money enters the system, existing money loses value. Prices rise. Savings shrink. Wages struggle to keep up. This is inflation, not an accident, not a mistake, but a feature. It is how debt is paid without ever being repaid. The burden is shifted, quietly, from governments to ordinary people, from balance sheets to daily life. This is why debt keeps growing, because it can, because the cost is spread thin enough that no one feels it all at once. But history warns us. Systems like this never end gracefully. They end when trust breaks And trust always breaks slowly, then suddenly. Every system built on debt eventually reaches a moment where confidence is tested, not all at once, not with an announcement, but through small cracks that slowly spread. Ancient Rome learned this lesson long before modern economics existed. To fund its empire, Rome reduced the silver content in its coins. At first, no one noticed. The coins looked the same, but merchants were not blind. Prices rose, trade slowed, trust vanished. Rome did not fall overnight. It decayed, slowly, from within. Centuries later, the same pattern repeated. In Weimar Germany, money was printed to escape debt and defeat. At first, it seemed necessary. Then it became uncontrollable. Savings were erased. Wages became meaningless. People were paid and rushed to spend before prices doubled again. Money lost its purpose. And when money loses meaning, society follows. Zimbabwe, Venezuela, different places, same story. Each collapse began with the same belief that debt could be managed by weakening money, that consequences could be delayed, that trust would survive. It never did. So why hasn't the modern system collapsed the same way? Because it learned from history, not how to avoid failure, but how to delay it. Today's system is global. Debt is spread across countries. Losses are shared. Pain is diluted. When one currency weakens, another absorbs the shock. When inflation rises, it is blamed on supply chains, wars, or corporations, rarely on the structure itself. This diffusion is intentional. It buys time. And time is the most valuable asset the system has. But time does not eliminate risk. It accumulates it. As debt grows larger, confidence becomes more fragile. Small shocks have bigger effects. Faith depends increasingly on belief rather than reality. And belief is unpredictable. At some point, people stop asking how much money they have and start asking what it is worth. This is the moment every debt system fears, because once trust breaks, it cannot be forced back. You cannot print confidence. You cannot legislate belief. You can only react, and reaction always comes too late. So, who owns the world when every nation is in debt? Not a country, not a bank, not a secret group pulling strings from the shadows. The true owner is the system itself, a system built on promises, confidence, and continuous expansion, a system that requires debt to function, not to be repaid, but to exist. This is why debt is never eliminated, because eliminating it would collapse the structure that depends on it, so debt is rolled forward. Inflation absorbs the cost, and people adapt until they cannot. History offers one final lesson. Empires do not collapse when they run out of money. They collapse when people stop believing that money represents something real. When that belief disappears, everything changes. Savings, work, trade, power. And the transition is never announced. It simply arrives. Quietly at first, then all at once. So the question was never really who owns the world. The real question is this: who understands the system before trust finally breaks, and who is prepared when the illusion ends